So, doctor, tell me a little bit about Omicron as far as we know that it was in Canada. Are you hearing anything about it being in the United States or even in the Bay Area?
I haven't heard anything officially, but again, I will be shocked, and many people will be shocked if it's not already here. Again, these viruses and variants don't respect any borders. And by the time we figure out something is going on, the cat is already out of the proverbial bag, so to speak.
Do you support the travel bans that have already been implemented, and would you like to see even more?
I don't think historically travel bans have worked very well. This just depends on how much is already in the population. If enough people are already infected, they each act as coronavirus bombs going off. And we get to what's called the exponential phase of transmission, meaning that you can have all the travel bans in the world forever and they wouldn't really stem what's already here. We've not seen the travel bans work in the original pandemic when from China. We haven't seen it work with Alpha from the UK. We haven't seen it work with Delta from India via the UK coming to the United States. So many people don't believe that they will work now as well.
Why is the Omicron variant so concerning?
It's concerning for two reasons. First of all, nobody was expecting to look for a variant. The authorities in South Africa decided to investigate very quickly because they went from about 200 cases a day to 2,000 cases a day, more than 2,000 cases in a very short period of time over days. So that's how the variant was first discovered. The second reason is that when you look at the sheer number of mutations in Omicron, it's much more than any of the other variants. If you look at Delta, it's less than 20 mutations compared to the original SARS-CoV-2. When you look at Omicron, it's more than 50, and 30 of them are in the spike protein, kind of like this area. 30 of them are here, and 10 of these are at the ends of the spike proteins, what we call the receptor binding domain. The reason why that's important is because if this looks so different to the antibodies we have developed from the vaccine or from natural exposure, they may not recognize this new enemy in town. And the fact that many of the mutations are on the end here means that it could potentially be stickier and enter the body easier compared to even Delta.
So it's really on the business end of the virus that makes it a little bit more concerning?
Yes, a lot of mutations on the business end of the virus that sticks onto the receptor to enter the body. And we've seen some of these mutations before. Some of them have been seen in the beta variant first described in South Africa and the gamma variant first described in Brazil. We know that these two variants are a little bit more resistant to not just vaccines, but to monoclonal antibodies, so that we expect that this will be a little bit of a hardier virus in terms of that. So both more transmissible as well as more vaccine invasive, theoretically. Again, we don't have human data to support this yet, but that's the worry.
Given that, what is your message to the public regarding those who haven't been vaccinated and also whether people should get that booster?
I only have 4 words of advice for the general population. Get vaccinated, get boosted. The reason why is because antibodies are only one part of the game here. We have the whole host of other immune cells like T cells that can even help kill infected cells once the virus enters the body. So that will keep people away from the hospital. That will keep people from getting really ill. And we know already from the data from South Africa that if you've been exposed to COVID naturally, that you may not be able to escape Omicron. So you can have a higher chance of reinfection if naturally exposed compared to what we know about vaccines and that insurance policy, not against only what we know, but also against what we don't know in the future.
So you're saying that even people, because I am hearing this a lot in the public, people say, well, I had COVID, so I don't need to get vaccinated because my body has enough antibodies to fight it. So can you just address that comment?
So we already hear reports from South Africa that people who've been exposed to COVID naturally are not immune to Omicron. A large proportion of these individuals who got it had been exposed to COVID before in their variants, either beta or delta. It didn't help them with Omicron. We do know from the US data from Delta that if you've been vaccinated, you have more than 2 times protection against variants compared to natural exposure. When you're naturally exposed to COVID, there's such a range of symptoms from asymptomatic to very mild to very severe. And we also know from data that that leads to a big range in the immune response on an individual level. So the vaccine is very, very predictable. I know what dose I'm giving you. I know what you're going to respond with based on clinical data, but I don't have the same level of confidence when you've been exposed naturally alone.
UCSF doing anything differently because we now are dealing with Omicron variant? Is protections or protocols?
I think at this point, we don't have to do anything differently except get vaccinated if you haven't and get boosted if you're eligible and haven't as yet. Because I feel confident that we'll be protected against Omicron in a very highly vaccinated area. It doesn't mean that we won't see an increase in cases, but as long as our hospitals remain protected and our resources remain intact, I think we will weather through this. And Omicron isn't the end of the story either. There's still a lot of Greek alphabets left, and there will be other variants in the future as long as transmission continues.
Do you think the presence of Omicron in the world is now going to delay lifting the mask mandates as far as indoors?
I think it will definitely delay the lifting of mask mandates. And you've seen in some cases like the UK where they've reinstated mask mandates. But that's as long as we continue to use the same metrics. It may be that in the near future, we'll say, I maybe don't care as much if there's a big surge in infection, as long as people are not going to the hospital in large numbers. But that's only true in highly vaccinated areas. But that may be something that people need to grapple with. Otherwise, we'll be shutting down, opening up, shutting down, opening up over and over again. But, maybe we need to distinguish between getting infection and breakthrough as a vaccinated person versus getting an infection that ends you up in the hospital.
It's my understanding that Pfizer is working on a booster that would also target Omicron. So the question now is, should people wait to get a booster to try to get that new version from Pfizer, or what is your recommendation?
My recommendation is if you're eligible for a booster, run out and get it right now. It will take some time before there's a tailor-made booster. And I'm not really even sure it's necessary for augmenting what we already have. It takes at least 100 days to make a new vaccine, which isn't a long time in the world of vaccines for a booster variant. And then you need to produce it and roll it out. So that would lead to delays. And if you're more than 6 months out for mRNA like Pfizer, Moderna, more than 2 months out for J&J, go out and get it. If your kids older than 5 haven't been vaccinated, please go and get it. We need to have as many people protected as possible to protect all of us.
And you touched on this briefly, but again, can you just address Omicron and vaccinations? Do the current vaccinations seem to be offering protection?
Well, we don't really know for sure if the current vaccines are going to afford protection. But given the fact that Omicron has some features that we've seen before in 2 other variants, beta and gamma, which are a little bit more vaccine resistant, they're not super vaccine resistant, so that the vaccines generally work. And again, even if the vaccines get a hit with antibody protection, the rest of the immune system is still going to be very intact to protect us from getting very sick, even if we get Omicron as a vaccinated person. So the short answer is, my gut sense is that the vaccines will continue to do very well. particularly in the outcome we care about the most, which is serious disease, hospitalization, and death.
Excellent. Doctor, as always, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Marianne.